not clear exactly what an impact information.
So let's talk a little bit more about the handoff between state and local law enforcement, as Senator Coons was, and the Bureau, but also between platform, technology platform, content moderation and the Bureau. But first, just inside the Bureau, give us comfort that we're getting a lot better at this, because I don't think we're giving you enough resources to get the right kind of new human capital you're going to need. But I'd love to be wrong. So go from 3 years ago to a year ago to today, and a day to a year from now. How are we getting better at filtering signal from noise? And what kind of new human capital are you hiring that should give us confidence that we're going to get better in this world that is exploding with lots of online rant?
Well, certainly, there's a number of things we're trying to do to get better, and I think we are making progress, but all of it, as you referenced, requires resources. So there's a data analytics piece, because the volume is so significant that we need to get better at being able to analyze the data that we have, to do it in a timely way, to separate the wheat from the chaff. And that requires both tools, analytical tools, and we've had requests for those in the budgets the last couple of years, but also people, data analysts, who can devote their time to that and have the experience. So that's part of it. I think a second part of it is, as I think I referenced in response to an earlier question, all of these investigations that we do, all these arrests we make, are important not just from a disruption perspective, but putting my intelligence hat on. They allow us to learn more about where people communicate, how they communicate, what the magic words are, all that kind of stuff. So we get better and better at anticipating from that reason. But make no mistake, we've got a long way to go. This is an incredibly hard problem. I know from communicating with my foreign counterparts, especially the Five Eyes, that they're struggling with it too. As to your point about people knowing where to go, I will tell you that our tip line, our public access tip line, both the email tips and the phone tips, have exploded in volume. And we're doing things to kind of get that information out to state and local law enforcement more quickly. And certainly the social media companies, some of them have gotten better at providing us more real-time information when they see something, because they have a lot of resources to devote to this problem in terms of policing their own platforms. So the more we can incentivize them to do that, that's a big part of this too.
Can I concretize the example? So I'm a high school teacher or a high school principal, and some kid comes to me and says, hey, these kids have always seemed to be online bullies, but now it seems like the things they're saying sound more violent. What do you tell them to do?
Contact your local FBI field office.
So it is FBI, it's not your local police department.
Well, I think they could also contact state and local law enforcement. We all now work so closely together that I think we view a call to one as a call to us all. Well, if we get the information, we're 9 times out of 10 going to be pushing it to state and local law enforcement as quickly as we can. We do a lot of outreach to the high schools, like you're talking about, meeting with teachers, meeting with students, meeting with parents, to try to get them to understand better what to be on the lookout for, what might be that indicator. Because the one thing we know, whether it's any kind of domestic violence screeners that we talked about here this morning, or frankly just the horrific active shooter, school shooter situation, is that when you look back on the path to the key moment, almost every single time there was a friend, a family member, a neighbor, a classmate, a coworker, somebody who knew the person well enough to know this is their baseline. They've now changed in a way that's scary to me. No one knows better than the person who knows it well. And that's the person we need to come forward. When they do, and they're doing it more and more, we're able to get in front of them.
I'm basically I won't ask a question here, but I'll flag one that I want to continue talking with you about. I would love to hear your big national pitch for these data analysts, because we need more great human capital to serve our country in this way. But I also want to be sure that our training for these data analysts have First Amendment sensibilities about what they're there to do. They're looking for violence. They're not looking there to be the national speech police. So look forward to continuing that conversation. Thanks for your work.
Thanks, Senator Sass. Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director Riggs, for being here today. And I want to join in expressing my condolences for the loss of those 2 agents, and my thanks to the thousands of agents who work day in and day out to make America safe. One When you last appeared before this committee in July of 2019, I expressed my concern that Donald Trump's attacks against members of Congress and his other rhetoric, quote, might ignite white supremacists and nationalist organizations and encourage hate crimes, end quote. I asked you whether you were concerned about the increasing number and intensity of his attacks on public officials and what the FBI was doing both proactively and responsibly about them. And he said, quote, I think we are very concerned about any threats of violence against any American, but certainly that would prominently include our elected officials. We've seen increasing attacks by the president and others against public officials when the rioters who came to the Capitol, stormed Citadel of Democracy on January 6th, were inside. They boasted proudly and loudly that they were doing what Donald Trump wanted them to do. We have warned specifically about QAnon in a letter dated December 8th, 2020. A number of us, members of the Senate, warned that QAnon specifically was a threat. I would like to ask you whether the threat posed by QAnon, and as you well know, adherents of QAnon were among the rioters very prominently who stormed the Capitol, whether the continuing threat is worsened when prominent elected officials, including members of Congress, endorse the QAnon theory.
Well, certainly we are concerned about the QAnon phenomenon, which we view as a sort of set of conspiracy theories, and we've certainly seen domestic violent extremists of the sort that you're describing who cite that as part of their motivation. So that's something that we do.
But I apologize for interrupting. As you know, my time's limited. When members of Congress and endorse the QAnon theory, doesn't it worsen the threat of violence?
Well, again, our focus is on violence, on plans for violence, on the threats of violence. It's less on the rhetoric and the ideology. Obviously, folks who are using violence, that stimulates and motivates violence.
Well, I'll follow up with that, but discouraging one of the sort of cycle theory that in turn resulted in let me turn to hate crimes are underreported. We're seeing a rising trend of hate crimes, particularly directed against Asian Americans and violence. I have bill called the No Hate Act that would require more reporting of violence and violence. What do you think that is?
Certainly, share your goal of reducing hate crime, but also develop. And we are specifically about hate crime against Americans as well. I'm not directly familiar with it, but I think we share the goal of trying to figure out how to report it. As you may know, we have Divers, which is a new system that we're rolling out. We're trying to get to 100% on that, and we'd be pleased to work with you on figuring out how this bill might help advance that.
Well, the No Hate Act would in fact lead to better reporting, and 37% of hate crimes are unreported now. That is a here in 1960, and here's about Asian American, and I'm I know you don't want to be a quarterback, but you're going to be one clear quarterback. But and no, there was help on social media in other forms but you have maybe why and even get why didn't you go to the gang page? Why didn't you spell instead of just one over the course of I'm very good. That's about actually best about beyond the election, up to the inauguration, and specifically in December of 2020. In addition to that, in connection with the launches of raw intelligence that's been discussed so much here today, did pass that on to the people in best position to take action on the threat, not one that would now more broadly out in social media. As a number of the questions here today elicited, I think it highlights the different questions highlight the challenging job for law enforcement in today's world with social media. There is so much chat, often untrue. Somebody identified people are saying, uncle, angry, bad, separating out my standard. I understand your response. I don't understand why drawing from
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Ray, thanks for being here. Can I just go back to a series of questions that Senator Lee asked you? He asked you about the geolocation and metadata aspects of gathering related to metadata related to investigation of Florida. You said you weren't familiar with the specifics. Can I just clarify your responses to that? So when you say you're not familiar, are you saying that you don't know whether or not the Bureau has scooped up geolocation data, metadata from cell phone records from cell phone towers? Or do you not know, or are you saying the Bureau maybe or maybe haven't done it? Just tell me what you know about this.
So when it comes to geolocation data specifically, again, not in a specific instance, but just even the use of geolocation data. I would not be surprised to learn, but I do not know for a fact that when we're using geolocation data in any situation with connection to that. Again, we do use geolocation data on specific authorities in specific instances because this is such a sprawling investigation. That would not surprise me. When it comes to metadata, it's different. Obviously, geolocation. I feel confident that we are trusting various authorities to get metadata to provide the information. Again, the specifics of when, what circumstances, that kind of thing. I'm not going to do. That's having you around. Investigation, certainly not. Question here.
What authorities do you have in mind? You say that you're using the relevant authorities. What authorities are they?
Well, we have various forms of legal process we can serve on companies that will allow it.
And that's been done.
We're using a lot of legal process in connection with the investigations. Yes.
But specifically serving process on companies invoking your various legal powers to get that data from companies. That's been done in the case of gathering data.
And gathering metadata, again, I don't know the specifics, but I feel confident that has happened because metadata is often something we look at, and we have a variety of legal tools that allow us to do that under certain circumstances.
What about the cell tower data that was reportedly scooped up by the Bureau on the day during, in fact, while the riot was underway? What's happened? What's happened to that data? Do you still have it? Has it been retained? Do you have plans to retain it?
Again, whatever we're doing with cell phone data, confident we're planning in connection with our appropriate legal tools.
Well, here's what I'm going to try to get at. I think there's some things. How are we going to know what you were doing with it, and how are we going to evaluate the Bureau's conduct if we don't know what authorities you're invoking, what precisely you're doing, what you're retaining? This is, you said to him repeatedly you weren't familiar with the specifics. You've now said it to me. I don't know. I'm not sure how this committee is supposed to evaluate it. Bureau because you're basically saying instructed us. How are we going to know? We have to wait to the end of the investigation before that much.
Well, certainly I have to be careful about discussing on investigation but all the tools that we have in conjunction with prosecutors. There's information we can provide before an investigation. It goes through what some of the authorities we have, the tools we have, etc. We can probably provide some information like that might be useful to help answer the question.
That would be helpful. Thank you. I'll hold you to that. Let me ask you about some of the things that have been reported in the press. Particularly, there have been a series of reports that the Bureau has worked with banks in the course of the investigation into the January 6th riot and both before and after, and that some banks, particularly Bank of America, may have handed over data for 200 plus clients who may have used their credit or debit cards to make purchases in the DC area. What do you know about this? Has Bank of America voluntarily turned over information to the Bureau about its customers?
I don't know any of the specifics, so I'd have to look at it.
And so has the FBI requested similar information from any other companies to your knowledge?
Again, I'm sitting here right now. I do not know the answer to that question. I do know that we work with private sector partners, including financial institutions, in a variety of ways all the time in a variety of investigations. But exactly the specifics of what may or may not have happened here, that I don't know. Sitting here talking to them.
As I'm sure you can appreciate, my concern here is that 12 U.S.C. 3403 prohibits financial institutions from turning over confidential client records, unless, of course, they've got reasonable suspicion that there's a crime being committed. Now, the news reports on this have indicated that financial institutions were doing this in cooperation with the Bureau without any such indication of a crime. They were turning over reams of consumer data. That obviously would be a major legal problem, a major legal concern. Can you try and give me some answers to these questions? I appreciate you saying you don't know today, you're not aware of what's going on. Can you look into this?
I'd be happy to give you more information you can provide on the subject. As I said, we have a variety of ways in which we engage with financial institutions in particular. And as you referenced, there's a number of legal authorities that describe when you can and cannot do that and how that's supposed to work. So I don't want to get out, as I say, over my skis and try to characterize what may have happened in a specific instance. But I'm happy to look into it and see if there's more information.
But what about some of the technology companies, Facebook, Google, Twitter, Apple, Amazon? Has the FBI had contacts with those tech platforms following the events of the 6th?
We certainly had contact with a number of the social media companies in terms of the 6th. So that much I know.
Has the Bureau sought to compel any of those companies to turn over user data related to the 6th?
Well, again, I can't tell you the specifics here, but what I will tell you is that I feel certain that we have served legal process on those companies, which we do with some frequency, and we have received information from some of those companies. Whether that's true of every single one of the companies you listed, I can't say for sure, but I suspect it is because we work with the social media companies quite well.
Are you aware of any of the companies voluntarily turning over data to the Bureau in relationship to the events of the 6th?
I can't, sitting here right now, I can't say for sure.
I'd love just one more question, Mr. Chairman. It's expired. Is the FBI currently pressuring any of these platforms, the social media platforms, tech platforms? Pressure. Are you encouraging? Are you pushing for? Is there a desire to get?
We are not trying to get backwards. That is, I think, a criticism that gets leveled our way by people who don't understand our position, the opportunity to address it here. We are concerned about encryption, especially default connection with a lot of we are concerned that these companies continue to move the trajectory we find ourselves no matter how bold we are, legal how compelling the facts and circumstances found out on the heartbreaking victim, we will not be able to get access to the content that we say. We have been suggesting, and the cryptologists and cryptographers that I talk to say this is doable, is for the companies themselves to build in a way to have legal access when confronted with proper legal authority so that they can get access to information provided in response to a order. We're not going to have a key. We're not asking for a backdoor myth, urban legend that has been directed our way. But this is a subject that I think the American people need to understand because decisions that affect the life and blood of Americans all over this country, which normally are made by our elected representatives, are in effect getting made in corporate offices in big technology companies. And different people can come down to different places on the balance, but I would submit that's a balancing that should be made, not by one company. For example, child exploitation. We get, and to Facebook's great credit, we get tips on child exploitation they make every year to help us prevent the rest of the kids, hundreds of kids every year. If they move forward in the direction they're moving, they have already where those tips, those leads, that content, that information will drop into the abyss. So the tips will be gone. The victims, all those kids will still be out there. The pedophiles that are exploiting them, they'll still be out there. The only thing what we in law enforcement know who they are, where they are. I don't think that's the situation we want to find ourselves in. We welcome the opportunity to work with the companies, perhaps encouraged or incentivized through Congress to get to a situation where we can balance strong cybersecurity. Absolutely, it's a key part of our mission as well at the FBI, along with strong flesh and blood security, especially for American children.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hirono is on the phone. Can you hear me, Senator?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Ray, Mr. Ray, following the November 6th insurrection, you and other senior law enforcement officials were missing from public view, and the people who were providing the briefings to the public were the acting U.S. attorney and the assistant director of the FBI's Washington field office. I hope you agree that at a time like the it would be very important for high-level law enforcement people like you and others who have reached the public to limit the spread of misinformation about what happened and who was behind what happened. Don't you agree?
Certainly, I agree. It's important to prevent misinformation.
And part of the misinformation that happened was that, as you testified, that so far there is no evidence of fake Trump supporters committing or provoking violence during the January 6th riot at the Capitol. That's part of the misinformation that got out. Were you aware of these false claims?
Well, certainly along the way, we've seen a whole variety of claims from a variety of people about the investigation of the January 6th attack, just like with a lot of other high-profile attacks. Whether I can recall exactly when time I've heard that specific claim, I don't know.
This is part of the kind of false information and narrative that got out, blaming others such as Antifa for what happened. So that is why I think it's really important for others like you to be.
Yes, beggars can't be choosers.
You can ask some questions about hate crimes, and you acknowledge that there is a rise in hate crimes against the AAPI, the American Pacific Islander community. Wouldn't you agree that calling the COVID-19 the Kung flu or the China virus adds to the kind of targeted hate crimes that we are seeing a rise against the AAPI community?
Well, I don't know that it's really my place as FBI director to start weighing in on rhetoric, but I can assure you that that's not language I would ever use. And hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders is something that we are concerned about and take very seriously. We are investigating where we have facts sufficient to do that. We're also engaged in a variety of forms of outreach to the public. I think we've done 60 plus training or liaison events with the Asian American Pacific Islander community since just March of last year. We've put out intelligence reports to our partners about hate crimes against that community in particular. It's something we take very seriously.
I commend you for working with, I assume, local and state and local law enforcement entities as well as community advocacy groups to deal with the rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans. And in fact, just a few weeks ago, there were lethal attacks on. There seems to be a targeting of senior Asians. And so lethal attacks in San Francisco and in New York. And I think these are totally unprovoked attacks. And so I think that we need to continue to focus on what the community can do and what law enforcement can do to make sure that these crimes are prosecuted. I think it's also important for leaders to not have a blame by calling COVID-19 the China virus or Kung flu. You also testified, and you were asked some questions about the role of social media by these extremist groups. And you said that terrorism moves at the speed of social media. Senators Warner, Klobuchar, and I recently introduced the Safe Tech Act, which would pull back Section 230 immunity from tech companies for things like violations and wrongful death suits. Do you think that exposing these companies to civil liability would force them basically to take extremist content off of their platforms? Or to take these kinds of content more seriously and do something about it?
Well, Senator, I want to be careful not to get out ahead of the rest of the administration and weighing in on specific pieces of legislation. But having said that, I think there are a few things I can say. One is, while the immunity under Section 230 has obviously helped the evolution of the social media industry, it also allowed it to put in a lot of burdens and risks that other brick and mortar companies have had to face. And and it means that important decisions that affect many aspects of society that would normally be made by the people's elected representatives are now being made in the corporate offices in the industry. And so, while I can't comment on specific legislation, I certainly can tell you that I see the value, maybe it's the best way of putting it, of incentivizing online platforms to address both illicit content on their platforms and to assist law enforcement in bringing to justice criminals who use those platforms to victimize Americans.
And then there is also the concern that as entities such as Facebook and Twitter do more to control, modify this kind of content, then this could encourage drive the extremists to use encrypted platforms like Telegram and Signal. So that's another area that we're going to need to address. I wanted to turn briefly to your testimony that identifies lone wolf actors as a concern for you, and I think that with regard to lone wolf actors, we need probably a whole society approach. So, what can we all do to deal with the problem of lone wolf agreements?
So I appreciate the question. We do consider that a lone actor. I chose not to use the term wolf because I feel like it's too much credit. But lone actors within their own ground extremists, domestic violence is a real threat. But one of the dangers is so basically because like it's part of a lot of food. Somebody actually throwing food contact with fewer dots in that etc. Makes it that much harder for the person to think. What we desperately need is more of those situations where members of the public who know that person see the transformation, see things suddenly change in a way that they know is different and become much darker and dangerous. Those people to speak up, to contact law enforcement, whoever they trust in law enforcement, to alert people to that. And the good news, if there's any good news in this, is that we are seeing that happen more and more. Lots of people, it's heartbreaking to me, turn to family members and see this transformation. They know that us, their partners in the scene, may not only prevent that person from getting back into America, but also made some instances result in that person being off ramp and get out, as opposed to potentially being killed by law enforcement or incarcerated or something else. So we need the people. We always say if you see something, say something. And most people picture the abandoned backpack to bring up Buster. Obviously, we want people to see something and say something there. But we also need people, if they see something about somebody, to say something. And the more of that we can have, and the more members of Congress, as key voices in their communities and their home states, can encourage people to do that. That's one of the key weapons we have as a country. To use your phrase, whole of society defense against this threat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cotton. Director Ray, welcome. First, I was speaking saddened by the loss of Special Agents Dan Alvin and Lawrence Carter. And I want to send condolences to their families and to the agents who work with our Bureau. I believe that many of your agents across the country are grateful for the work they do to keep safe. When we turn to some of your written testimony, you say that the FBI assesses homegrown violent extremists as the greatest, most immediate international threat to homeland. These extremists are U.S.-based individuals located in and radicalized primarily in the U.S. who are not receiving individualized direction from global jihad-inspired or terrorist organizations, but are inspired largely by ISIS and Al-Qaeda to commit violence. So what you're saying there, if I understand it correctly, is that dangerous the threat is from other kinds of extremists, like racial supremacist groups or anarchist groups. The most dangerous threat we have in the country from extremism remains jihadists. Is that correct?
Well, I think the key word there was international. What I would say is we do dangerous attacking soft targets using crude, readily accessible weapons, motivated either by jihadist inspirations or by a variety of domestic homegrown violence. The domestic violence that have a lot more on with another is the greatest threat.
Okay. I want to turn to another kind of terrorist threats. Talk a lot here about domestic terrorism. Obviously, terrorism remains a serious threat. Important part of the federal government's counterterrorism law remains trying to prevent foreign terrorists from reaching our shores. Is that correct?
Yes.
And part of the screening process is checking our own criminal record and terrorism databases, but it does rely heavily on foreign governments, both providing us with data about criminal terrorist ties and also to document security practices so terrorists can't obtain fake IDs. Is that correct?
Certainly, that's a part of kind of hardening our homeland defense.
And your predecessor testified to Congress in 2015 that without cooperation from those governments, if the terrorists not already in the army databases, we could, quote, very actively.
Make that.
It's still the case in Syria and Iran.
I will confess that I'm not sure I know the answer sitting here today, but I would be flabbergasted with the answer or anything other than yes, it's still the case.
Still the case that Syria and Iran, I'm sorry, that Libya and Syria are both countries that lack effective control over significant parts of their territory, and therefore cannot provide information coming from those parts of their country.
I believe that to be the case.
What about Myanmar, also known as Burma, where there was a military coup last week? Is it true that the United States now faces serious obstacles to vet individuals coming from Burma?
I'm not sure I know the answer on Burma, but I suspect the answer is the same.
And finally, in this rogues gallery, what about North Korea? Is it true that North Korea remains uncooperative, providing us information about Korean nationals that might try to come to the United States?
I have rarely heard North Korea come up in the context of cooperativeness.
Thank you. I just want to note before we close this topic that all of those nations, Syria, Iran, Libya, Burma, and North Korea, were among the nations from which President Biden lifted travel restrictions by executive order on his very first day in office without any plan in place to improve security for those travel situations. Each of them represents a real threat to the United States. I want to turn to another kind of threat we face, which is crime and gang violence in particular. Unfortunately, both drug trafficking and violent crime are now on the rise in the United States. Are street gangs driving a significant part of violent crime on the streets across America?
Well, certainly, when I go around and I've talked with state and local law enforcement in all 50 states, I think the number one issue you would hear about, maybe all of them, is violent crime. What it drives it in each city, state, town is different, but it's not just the national gangs, the MS-13s, the 18th Street gangs, etc. A lot of times it's the neighborhood gangs that really top of mind when you talk to chiefs and sheriffs around this country.
And those gangs, of whatever type, they often use violent crime as a way to expand their territory and so forth. And they can use money-making enterprises like drug trafficking or prostitution, robbery crimes like robbery.
Yes.
So let's talk about MS-13 since you raised it. MS-13 is gaining notoriety for some particularly brutal crimes across the country in recent years, and they continue to expand their influence in the United States. Is that right?
Well, I know we've made significant strides against MS-13 over the last 18 months or so, but it is a very significant gang threat. Brutality, savagery, level of organization that sits there.
And it remains primarily just American, also.
We'll certainly do that with crime. Yes, exactly. On the place.
So they don't technically membership cards on the door have a membership directory. Unless they're named by another gang member, you still use methods like gang tattoos to identify who belongs to MS-13.
That would be one piece of information that would be relevant. We're obviously talking to human sources, witnesses, informants, collecting information from
I know that your Safe Streets task forces and your National Gang Intelligence Center and other units often work together with the Department of Homeland Security, state and local law enforcement to find and prosecute these gang members. In your professional today, those information and custody enforcement support those 13 gang members.
I want to know that I've tracked the deportation rate related to MS-13 members per week across MS-13 members in this country. Our focus has been on locking them up and putting them in federal prison as much as we can, which is where we would like to have them. In addition to the units that we physically call, I would also say our TAG, which is a task force that we have in El Salvador, because we actually have pretty effective results with U.S. law enforcement working with El Salvador. Someone left us on the other two to take down in their home country as well. So it's the two pieces together. So I can't say sitting here right now anything about the immigration posture, but certainly when we find out 17 gang members here, we want to put them in orange jumpsuits where they get to spend a lot of time in our prisons.
Thank you. Well, when it comes to MS-13, it won't surprise you to know that I support the long run policy, but also support the short-run policy.
Thank you, Senator Cobb. Director Ray, hello. I know it's been a long day, and I appreciate you. We're on the very tail end of the questions, so I appreciate your endurance. I first just want to associate myself with, maybe not the Senator White House, but definitely the spirit of the I appreciate you. Need this concern, the concerns I put for it's very important to play on information to be able to. So I really appreciate it.
Get away from me.
I also want to I'm aware that there are other officers here. I hope
They are. Yeah. But also.
Please. I my treasure conversation it's happening stepping into the job, and I really appreciate the conversation about the challenges and stuff in this country, and the urgency for the FBI, which has used its power for its investigations and working with the community on other ways to really set the example for the longest driver in many ways. Some legend of this flag of this driver towards being a just nation. I just want to ask you though about your team. We know that diverse teams are better. Everybody from Harvard Business School to every top business consulting agency has shown study after study that diverse teams are stronger teams, but especially ones that law enforcement have such a mandate that you have. Having diversity is really important. And so I guess my first question is how diverse is the FBI's workforce now in terms of gender, religious, and racial diversity?
So, Senator, this is a topic that, as you may recall from our prior visit, is very important to me personally. It's something I try to make a priority. We're addressing it in a variety of ways in terms of results. Cautiously optimistic. So, racial diversity, our special agent has been more diverse with each year over the past 2 years. In each case, more certainly than diversity. And this year, which I think is a bright spot, the percentage racial diversity of our applicant pool is much higher than it was in years past. On gender, much the same. Applications, the diversity of applications is up significantly. The diversity, gender diversity of our quantical classes is up. I've set targets for our field offices. Those targets are exceeded. So we're doing a number of things to try to address the issue. We have what we call diversity recruitment events. Which we're here to do. We have a very encouraging project we started with Regional Entertainment that's focused on historically black colleges and universities and trying to improve our recruiting pipeline there.
Can I just ask you, could you share that data with the committee of the progress?
Sure, I think that's definitely information that we provide separately.
And then your leadership team, you provide the diversity of the leadership team that you have around you.
Sure, I will say yes is the answer, but I will say that at the front, I've recently appointed, we have, as you may remember, our structure. We've had a great talk with EAPs, executives, each one of his own branch and have multiple positions. So just over the last couple of months, as people retire, I've replaced one of the EAPs with an Asian American woman who oversees the resources branch, and one of the other of these 6 EAPs with an African American male who oversees our intelligence branch. It's not just our intelligence function, but our private sector group and our law enforcement partner engagement as well. Also appointed the first.
Honor the time here.
Okay.
I know we'll be available to discuss that more information. A minute or so I had left. I think a lot of the questions have been very illustrative of a lot of the challenges we face. I appreciate that from members of the sides of the dais here. I just wanted to drill into something we talked about the previous ones. And it seems that that court case Republican official always give choice I guess I just asked begin with is that Attorney General Trump said that he had quote not seen fraud.
Going to be out of supplies before too long. Beautiful.
Do you agree with Attorney General Trump's statement that absolutely no voter fraud have changed the outcome of the 2020 presidential election? I agree with you. And to be crystal clear on this, as FBI director, who is this federal crime, you're aware of no evidence of widespread voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election, correct?
We are not aware of any widespread evidence of voter fraud, much less that would have affected the outcome of the presidential election.
Well, I have great respect for Senator Shannon. He's a friend, not that he's the incredible power that Dick Durbin has given me right now. Although power is going to my head, but I'm going to police myself and defer to the good Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't hear you. Did you call me?
I called you Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That sounds very good.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Director, I've listened from my office to you. Tell me who had the authority to call out the National Guard on January 6th?
My understanding is that the decisions to call out the National Guard, in one sense, are the responsibility of the Secretary of Defense. But in another sense,
Okay,
the
Mr. Director, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think we can agree that the FBI had credible information that there was likely to be violence from January 6th. Can we agree on that?
well, I don't know if we had assessed its credibility. We certainly had information that was concerning about the potential for violence on January 6th. As we discussed here this morning, one piece of information that was more specific that I'm aware of was passed, quite
Well,
quickly.
based on that information, I'm sorry, but you just keep nibbling at the edges and dancing around the issue. And I understand, I'm not asking to throw anybody under the bus, Chris, I get it. But we need to find out what happened. Now, if you were king for a day, based on the information that you had, maybe not at the time, but later on, would you have called out the FBI? I mean, the National Guard?
Senator, as you said, I really want to be careful not to be armchair quarterbacking others. I think the National Guard, we have seen, can play a very important role in the crowd.
Excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not trying to be rude, but my time's up. Well, who made the call not to, based on your information, who made the call not to call out the FBI? What did they show?
That's called the FBI.
National.
I would prefer others who were more involved in that discussion. From what I have heard, read, my understanding is that one stage of the process, local government people need the National Guard's assistance.
What do you mean by local government? The mayor?
Yes.
So the mayor.
At the beginning,
What do you mean by the beginning?
well, in the day or two leading up to the 6th. And then as to exactly how it played out on the 6th itself,
I understand,
not as
but
sure about it. Yeah.
I mean, clearly our people were overrun by the military. So, think about this. Okay, so the mayor, the city government decided not to call that the FBI, of the national. What about the household?
I don't know what role the House has in Orange played with respect to
How about the Senate? Sorry. How about the chief captain? Think they call out the national.
I don't know the answer to that. My understanding is that the law enforcement officials here have the responsibility over the Capitol. There were just different views about whether or not the National Guard was appropriate when, what level, but all I really know, and that's what same thing you've seen in the press coverage.
Okay, that's enough on that. I listened to your comments about diversity, and I thank you for your good work there. Any fair-minded person has to conclude that diversity is a strength, not a weakness. But this subject comes up a lot, and I think it's going to come up a lot again, and that's not a criticism, that's just an observation.
No. Now, having said that, I do believe the FBI needs to be more diverse and more inclusive than it is, and that we need to work a lot harder at that. We're trying to work a lot harder on that.
Do you believe that the FBI is a systemically sexist or misogynistic institution?
Again, that's not the way I would describe the FBI that I know and see every day. But again, it's a place where we need to be more diverse and inclusive, and we need to work harder at that. And we are working hard at that. We've got progress that we still need to make to at least to be satisfactory on my standard.
Fair enough. Mr. Director, have you ever been to Hong Kong?
No.
wonderful. The Chinese Communist Party is destroying it. If Congress passed a bill and said to the good people of Hong Kong who yearn for freedom, come to America. We're going to follow our friends in Britain. They come here. We won't get out from under. Do you think the FBI has the ability to screen for spies? One of the criticisms of the proposition I just stated is, well, we would be letting it happen. Do you think, based on your knowledge of security, that we could catch most of the spies?
Well, I yield to no one in my faith and confidence in the great work of the men of the FBI, but I will tell you that the Chinese counterintelligence threat is the greatest threat, certainly the greatest counterintelligence threat that we face in the country, and the sheer number of what we would refer to as non-traditional collectors working on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party is something that is a massive resource.
Okay, that was probably an unfair question. I'm not asking you to do anything. In a few seconds, I have allowed him begging me and about speaking. Doing up tell me how many people you referred to the prosecution and guys working on
Well, for prosecution, or just
or prosecution first. Just give me a number.
well, I the prosecution issue related to most of the people. Now that is important. That piece of it, because we're cooperating fully with terms of investigation, this is going to slow down process that further investigation from the regard. So at the moment, that process is still underway. We're open consensus.
So you had to hold up this. Sorry, I went over, Mr. Chairman. I should play for you. Sure you play better, Joe.
Oh, come on! Get on the fucking horse! Shit. Alright, dude, this is crazy. Come on, horse! Fuck. Fuck. Where the fuck did this fuck?
Want to be careful. The idea.
Yeah.
So, on the second question, in terms of rollout, number of things. So, in addition to
Oh, you fucking asshole. That's it. Lucky. That's all. Fucking up. What the fuck?
Other cases, we would stay local. Sometimes we the best based on the facts. We are trying to provide forensic support of other this experience and help support the state local. We're also trying to do a lot more public outreach, which is both with the community itself, but also with state
Shit.
law. In some cases,
Fuck.
yeah, a lot of that. We're also providing
Oh.
so forth. And that includes training, not just balance. Work. Respond. Just address just since March of 2020, I think we've done over 60 liaison events with trainings specifically geared towards the Asian Americans and their community. And we've also tried to put out intelligence reports like the one you referenced. I think it's another example about examples of course, that's great. I think. Others are investigating if there was alleged role in the attack. We've also learned that among those participating in the insurrection, there were numerous officers from around the country, including outright supremacists and radicals. Great how as a system on and you believe to infiltrate so
Oh, shit.
Certainly it is true that in some instances, as we're some instances of current or particular movement participated in pursuit of cases such as aggressive
We want to also
to their department employees, hospital administrators, rules as appropriate. We work very closely with all
bullshit.
common streams. If we do that, that kind of inside threat. And they do too. And I want to be clear that from my experience, I'm dealing with our law enforcement partners and our local partners every single day. The vast majority of men and women both in law enforcement and military are brave, selfless, compassionate, fighting for bad apples. We work with them.
Oh, you fucking asshole. That's
Fight state.
that is
Painful. Further best practices.
Before I ask you a question, I think it's very important. I was the last every single member, every single staff the same. I hope that there will be many of them are doing putting themselves between us and violence, and we need to treat them fairly. But back on the rioters on January the 6th, can you give me a rough idea just of the crimes that many of them are being charged with or being pursued through investigations?
Well, we're using a variety of statutory weapons. There's certainly assault charges. There are a number of charges that are specific. By that I mean assault against federal law enforcement, including the Capitol Police, the brave men and women of the Capitol Police that I think you rightly credited there. There's also various charges related to destruction of federal property, things along those lines. We are now starting to begin to see, as we sort of taken care of the most immediate, easiest to prove, I hate using words like low hanging fruit charges,
Yep.
but now we're starting to more of the more advanced, if you will. So we've had some conspiracy charges recently. Some of the people that are more involved in different forms of planning or coordination or preparation, some of those charges are starting to happen. We'll have to see that continue.
Incidentally, Mr. Chair, I want to associate with Senator Graham's comments earlier. I think your threats are going up, and we've got to match that with additional resources. So I look forward to the committee continuing that. Would you see any difference between the charges, the investigations that you're pursuing in the events on January 6th and charges that should be pursued against federal buildings and federal law enforcement officers being harmed in Seattle or Portland? Are there active investigations for either of those two events, and would they be treated any differently?
As I think said in response to an earlier question, we are equal opportunity. So by that I mean we don't care what ideology motivates you. If you're engaged in violence that violates federal law, we're coming for you. And that's just true for the events over the summer against some of the domestic terror.
Other active investigations related to those events?
Yes.
I feel like you can respond to one of the members' questions about this just increasing, the volumes increasing. I introduced in the last Congress, and I intend to reintroduce a bill called Protect and Serve, which increases penalties for rioters for assaults on federal officers and more significant consequences. Do you think that those would be helpful tools for law enforcement?
Certainly.
Prosecution.
Sorry, didn't mean.
Go ahead.
I think, while I'm not familiar with the specific bill, I want to enthusiastically support the idea of looking at everything we can do to protect the men and women in law enforcement. The threats, the violence against law enforcement in this country is one of the most tragic and sometimes least talked about challenges we face. Um, this year alone, uh, an officer is shot and killed in the line of duty at a rate of more than one. And when you think about what it takes for someone to be willing to sacrifice his or her life for a total stranger, and how unusual that is, just to begin with. And then you add on top of that somebody who's willing to do that, get up and do that every single day, day after day after day, and they never know when that day might be the day that they don't come home to their families. And so then you put that into context, the way in which some violent opportunists or domestic terrorists hijack some of these protests, whether it's the ones over the summer or the ones on the 6th. And now you've got some of these same selfless individuals who are, in many cases, killed, but for everyone who's killed, there's someone who survived, thank goodness, whose life and his family's life is forever altered. And I don't think we could ever and should ever take for granted those people because they protect all of us.
I agree. I'm curious with all the defund the police and systemic racism and all law enforcement agencies and the dialogue that's out there. Have you seen any measurable decrease in the number of people who are trying to apply to come in to the FBI? I know I'm seeing it, and state troopers are telling me their applications for academies are down by over 70%. We see people accelerating their retirements. Do we have any potential threat out there, either within the FBI or for law enforcement in general, having fewer people willing to get into this profession?
So certainly when it comes to state and local law enforcement, because I talk to many of the same chiefs and sheriffs you do, the recruitment challenge is a real component of the time. And something we need to be concerned about all of these trends. And talking about having a particular risk of that just making that trend worse. At the FBI, last year and the year before, we tripled the number of people, Americans across the country, applying for special agents. So when I took the job, it was around 11,000 or so a year people applying to be special agents. In 2019, it was about 36,000. And last year, that's really higher than that. That's the highest number applying to be special agents in airline in about a decade. So we'd like to thank the board for very people who want to work for us. We're grateful for that, and hopefully we can do our part for more people. It can only take so many of them to pursue law enforcement jobs.
News. I just wish you all the best of luck in prosecuting every single person that you can reach the Capitol and every single person on the grounds who assaulted or felt police officer. If there's anything we can do to help, and I will follow up with the department to get a perspective as to whether or not you think the Protect and Serve Act would be helpful. I think that it will be, but I'd like your professional judgment. Thank you, Mr. George.
Thanks, Senator Simcoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Director Ray. Greetings from your home state of Georgia. Thank you. Thank you for your service. There's been a significant increase in shootings and violent crime nationwide over the last 18 months. There were at least 10 people shot in Atlanta, Georgia on Sunday. What does the FBI assess as driving this crime?
Well, certainly I am following the same trends you are. We're concerned not just in Atlanta, but in other cities. I'm not sure it's a single factor that's driving it. It's a variety of things. We are seeing some of it may be more potential for wrongdoing to occur.
Took care of that last thing.
Challenges with local police departments. and some of the issues there in terms of their recruiting and staffing. A lot of them are understaffed in addition to the recruiting challenge, so that's a problem. So there are a variety of drivers that we think contribute to it, but the violent crime problem over the last year in particular, 2020, is something that is a great concern. We are very warily keeping an eye on. It doesn't get the same kind of headlines as some of the other threats we'll talk about today, but as your question, I think quite rightly implies, it's a subject that's near and dear to the hearts of all the people we know back home.
Yeah, what that many shootings in Atlanta on Sunday alone, this increase in violent crime is a great concern to Georgians, people across the country. We can work with this committee,
You want to
my
earn
office, and try to refine that
a
assessment.
dollar or two?
This violent crime.
We'd be pleased to do that. I commend you for your interest in the violent crime problem back in our state.
Appreciate that, Director Ray. Next week will be the first anniversary of the shooting death of Breonna Taylor, a young woman who died when police officers in Louisville, Kentucky, entered her home with a battering ram executing a no-knock search warrant connected to a narcotics investigation. Ms. Taylor was not the subject of that warrant. There's obviously been deepening and grave concern about equal justice, due process, the extent of brutality, harassment, discrimination faced by Black Americans in the justice system, growing over the last year, given incidents such as this one, without commenting on the specifics of related to Ms. Taylor's case. Is the FBI prioritizing investigations of cases involving color of law violations under 18 U.S.C. 242? What resources have you instructed your field offices to commit to those investigations?
So as you say, I can't discuss the Taylor case specifically. We have an ongoing federal investigation, but we are definitely trying to push forward on color of law cases. We have through our civil rights division within
We should stick
investigated
together in this. You know,
we
you
have
don't want
investigations.
to be by
We have quite a number in the country.
all alone in these times.
We're also trying to contribute
Find safety
by
in numbers.
different
So
forms
there's
of training
this
and
posse
outreach
right
to
around here
police departments. They understand
that
better
they're bound to attack us
where
soon enough.
the lines are, where
Unless
we
we
fit
strike
into it.
first,
So
or you do,
part of it
and
as
I'll
well.
pay.
We're also
This
trying
is
to
a mean
contribute
bunch.
to
So you don't think you're
the situation
fucking
by
no innocent.
there's a better
By
reporting.
Christ, they will
We've had a
deserve
lot of conversations
whatever
this
you
morning
throw
and
at
up
them.
about
So you
statistics
good for it?
and reporting.
They went
And
too
when it comes to
far.
use of force,
Go get them.
we are trying to build out a use of force database that involves use of force by police departments, law enforcement agencies around the country. It's voluntary. We can't mandate all these local police departments to provide the information, but we are doing a lot to encourage them to submit their data. And my pitch to them has been, we're going to be talking about these issues no matter what. We should all want conversations based on the actual facts and the actual data, as opposed to what
Okay.
some random person
Like
thinks the
any
facts
good
are.
business,
And so we
we're on
figured out
top accounts.
reached
I'm
one
a
of the
clerk,
thresholds where we
as
can
well as
start doing
everything
some
else,
reporting.
even boot black.
To get to a
This
certain
is an
threshold.
invoice.
Statistically,
You can fill that there. You'll save
it's like
me some
80%
trouble.
or something. Police department report today is considered statistically reliable, but so investigations, training and
Have a
outreach,
read.
for police, for police. Thank you, Director Ray. I know the committee's considered.
What you do?
Office, the county the FBI's investigation over the last 2 years, public law violations. Happy to see you provide some information. Okay, look forward to that conversation. Director Ray, is the recently revealed SolarWinds breach major cybersecurity breach? It failed.
Well, I think it's a cybersecurity. I think it's counterintelligence. Just comes over to your company. But as it in some ways, that's our goal is to find out about it. Question is not how fast is it protected, how long is it protected, the scope, the scale, range of attack methods, the number of adversaries, all sophisticated cyber attacks, dwarfs what it was when I was in law enforcement and national security before. And a huge amount of the information, a huge amount of information for America is in the hands of the private sector. So unlike some of the other kinds of threats we've been talking about here this morning, the partnership between intelligence community, other federal agencies, and the private sector is at the heart of which
Everywhere that I take them, you see pledge rules with residents of this area. I'd like to do a follow-up for what I see in the Blackboard. So what do we do about it? No, we have an expedition training workshop. So even finding and naming hackers doesn't lead to any punishment. What is our response to the future of cyber?
So, Mr. Chairman, I think discussing those confidential processes that you guys done classified setting, that by itself might give you a little bit of a hint. But what we have found, speaking more generally, we have found is that we are at our most effective when we have joint sequence operations. Essentially, think of it as the whole big parts. So you mentioned any one of those things by themselves, start putting some of those things together in a way where each amplifies the effect of the other. We have actually seen some results of our adversaries. Not just the law enforcement, it's smart partner participation, it's private sector partner, it's treasury sanctions, a whole host of things that sequence. Never suggest to you, you would never believe it. If I did suggest to you that was going to eliminate the problem. It doesn't push the adversary back and slow the problem. This is going to be a long, hard slog.
Thanks, Director. I believe some of the Senator?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm here.
Okay, Senator, you have the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think I don't have enough bandwidth. Something's wrong with the video transmission. We'll just go with audio. And to the chairman's follow-up here today, I would just like to add, Mr. Chairman, I would offer to you is we're looking at what is happening with cryptocurrencies and with the growth of that marketplace. How this currency could be used when it comes to cybercrime and to terrorism. I think a briefing from you all would be really helpful to us. So I would I would commend that second place for us to go. And Director Ray, I would say thank you you for being here, and thank you to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Tennessee for the work they did after extracting the evidence in Tennessee that had taken part. And there are a lot of questions that still remain. One, and I know Senator Kennedy mentioned this, but the National Guard online that I'd like for you to speak to that if you can, the day after, because I understand that about the Secretary at 222 and the Chief Guard Commanding General at 149, and the Guard began to mobilize at 3, and the troops did not arrive.
Good morning.
Is that your understanding of the timeline?
Senator, I appreciate the question, and I'm glad you had me back to my exchange with Senator, because I feared it contributed to the law. So first, let me say my understanding is that the question the mayor that affect DC or but it's not DC state land. I really don't have the specifics on exactly who requested what and when. And I understand why it's a topic of keen interest, but I as FBI director am not intimately involved in that process, so I don't want to add to any conclusions about that.
Okay, so then it would be appropriate that we direct that, first of all, to the Guard Command and to the Secretary of the Army. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so, yes.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you. Because I do think that that we do need some clarification there. Let me go to some of the riots that have taken place around the country and the crime that has seemed to spike this year. And previous to this, the FBI participated in Operation Legend. Of course, Memphis, Tennessee was that effort. So thank you for that. But let me ask you, is the FBI tracking extremist groups like Antifa or other radicalism that are connected to violence in cities across the country, the violence and the looting that has taken place? And we know Operation Legend wound down and ended in January. So how is the FBI going to continue assisting local law enforcement in these cities with these riots that have taken place?
Well, Senator, I appreciate the question. I think you touched on two very, very important things. Streets in a lot of our major cities, including Memphis, Operation Legend, to address. The other is the violence that's occurring is protests. Otherwise, people protest hijacked by people engaged in violence. So on the first, from what I would call sort of more traditional violence side, in fact, Operation Legend side, in fact, we see that as a shorthand. We did think that was a successful operation, but it was by its very nature a finite operation. What we're doing since then is trying to work with our Safe Streets task forces, which have state forces and other federal agencies, to try to bring a strategic, intelligence-driven approach to violent crime. What I have found when I've talked to state forces in all 50 states is that each city has
What the fuck is all these people?
violent crime in that community. everybody can be working together in a cooperative way, they can prioritize the impact and dismantle the enterprise as opposed to just kind of pushing the problem around.
Okay, let me, not to cut you off, but to jump in there, because you're correct. There are different sets of issues around the different was this group or groups, or was it individuals like a lone actor that you mentioned earlier, or and of course in Nashville on Christmas Day we saw the actions of a lone actor, and separately at some point I would like to those that are here, or like in Seattle, the capital that where we're just really rallying the rule of law and trying to abolish this presence. So how are you tracking with anarchist groups who are planning attacks, who are occupying public spaces, and what time
Sure. We do have a number of domestic terrorism investigations. We would call them in violence investigations into individuals, state not last year, we arrested more anarchist violence than the prior 3 years. But
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from the source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.
What do you want?
Morning there.
Two guys. Period. No.
What's the matter with you? Thought you moved on. Good to see you. Anything particular? I got plenty to choose from. Nice to see you take care of what I sell you. You've been cleaning that good, I can tell. Make sure you stock up on bullets. You want me to add something special to that weapon? I stand by all these guns. You ain't happy with one, you let me know. Happy to do a little extra work to that thing. All in that well, are you? Weapon looks good. Nice to see you take care of what I sell you. You've been cleaning that good, I can tell. Always best to have more ammunition than you might need. Nice to see you take care of what I sell you.
Components. Let's start.
Don't cross the sheriff in this town. He's a snake. All in that well, are you? Weapon looks good. Nice to see you take care of what I sell you. If you want new stock for this, I got a few buttes. All the Mexican outlaws around here these days, you need a good firearm. All in that well, are you? Weapon looks good. You see Mavis at the general store, tell her Roscoe says hello. You've been cleaning that good, I can tell. Make sure you stock up on bullets. Nice to see you take care of what I sell you.
Hello? Dang, you've been going a long time.
You stupid game. Quit fucking cheating.
Boy, I will cut you into bloody little bits.
Come on. Remove these buttons. Come on, get up there. Why can't I take a gold pocket watch? Bullshit. Bullshit. I should be able to take a watch. Fucking pocket watches. Jesus. This is no face.
I got the best meats and provisions right right here. Good to see you again.
Hello again. Well, if you like, I can give that thing a few tweaks. Happy to do a little extra work to that thing. Always best to have more ammunition than you might need. All in that well, are you? Weapon looks good. Nice to see you take care of what I sell you. All in that well, are you? Weapon looks good. Nice to see you take care of what I sell you.
Hey, you behave now. It's you and my son. He gonna learn today.
Nice. That is motherfucking good.
and nature gone. The stench in there knocked the clerk on his back when he opened the door, and we managed to escape. Neither Pete nor Phil was really cut out for running. They got picked up at the end of town and hanged the next day. Which seemed harsh to me. You know, I was just thinking, it's been years now since I slept with four walls around me. And even longer with four walls in a room. I've never been happy.
shit.
Hey, hey, come here. Come on. Okay, let's talk. Have I got a proposal for you? Listen, we can forget about last time. You buy the map, everyone goes away happy. Come on, come on. I'm a busy woman. Should I just walk? Huh?
You know, I don't know why I didn't start this business years ago. We're going all the way to the top, you and me.
trying to get over and see myself.
Supplies are starting to run low, just so you know. Yeah, anything's better than nothing.
Get the mother. No. Fuck. Let's.
I know my horses. And this is a good one. Good morning, mister.
Whoa there! Watch it!
Howdy. Nice to see you. See you around.
Come on, stupid horse. Look at bullshit. Come on! Look at that shit. Hurry up. Where the fuck? Why the fuck are you just coming now? You stupid, scared ass horse. Shit pissed me off. Okay. Bet you this is gonna be one of the boats. Sure. Alright.
y'all back to the hell you came from. Goddamn you! Shit. Phew. I did not want to die in the mouth of one of them monsters. So, listen. There's a fishing village not far from here. A place called LeGras. Reckon you can take me there? Gonna see if they can sell me some supplies before I head back west. I'm here for a ride, not a sit down. Let's go.
Shut up.
What we stopped for?
It's not perfect, but you need to heal. We'll be right back.
Won't stay in this shithole longer than I have to. Okay then, I ain't expecting the warmest of welcomes here. This is for you. Good of you to help me out. Watch yourself out there.
Really, Grandma? Come on. Come on. Oh, man, we gotta start doing this bullshit. Come on. Come on. Get up there. Come on. Come on. Get up there.
No use spraying nothing.
Ah. Here we go. Come on. Get the fuck. Jesus Christ. I don't.